of digitalization, disruptive innovation, the gig economy, and the future of self-reliant workforce. We have among us today industry leaders, government officials, academicians, our director sir, faculty members, and students. I, Saveke sir, along with Mrinalini, will be your anchors for the day.
To set the ball rolling, we request Professor B.S. Sahai, Director IIM Jammu, to light the lamp and inaugurate the ceremony.
Recording in progress.
We are truly honored to have Director Sir, who is here with us despite having a prolonged leg injury. He is a true epitome of hard work and the embodiment to the adage, the show must go on. We are delighted to have him here and grace the summit in his presence.
Thank you, sir. We now invite our students for the Saraswati Vandana.
Ma Saraswati Sharade, Ma Saraswati Sharade, Purna is अज्ञान उदधि से, पूर्ण इस अज्ञान उदधि से वीणा पानी तार दे, तार दे, तार दे। माँ सरस्वती शारदे, मा सरस्वती शारदे सूर्य ब्रह्म शिव विष्णु गजानन जिन चरणों को सेवते हाँ सूर्य ब्रह्म शिव विष्णु गजानन जिन चरणों को सेवते हम शिशु है अज्ञानी माता इन चरणों का प्यार दे वीणा पानी तार दे तार दे तार दे माँ सरस्वती शारदे माँ सरस्वती शारदे।
Thank you, our dear students. Atmanirbhar Bharat, which means self-reliant India, is a word adopted and popularized by the Indian government in regard to the country's economic goals and progress. The phrase is used in this context to refer to making India a larger and more involved part of the global economy, as well as promoting policies that are efficient, competitive, robust, as well as policies that promote equity and are self-sustaining and self-generating. To further our national aspiration to imbibe the core of self-reliance, we must first initiate dialogue on the current challenges faced on various fronts. Our panel topics have been carefully crafted to raise those key issues clouding our path and leverage the power of leadership in its truest sense.
The Leadership Summit serves as a platform to bring together visionary leaders and create ideas that have a meaningful impact on today and tomorrow. We would like to extend a warm welcome to all industry leaders joining us for this discussion on the course of 2 days. May I please request Dr. Muqbil Burhan, Program Chair, Leadership Summit, to introduce Leadership Summit 3.0 to our guests and audience.
Thank you. Honorable Director, Sir, faculty colleagues, staff officers and staff members, students from IIM Jammu and students who have joined us from outside, a very warm welcome to all of you and a very good morning. This is in fact our third leadership summit, and we have had two wonderful leadership summits in the past. Unfortunately, this time we couldn't do it online or offline. We had to shift to this digital platform, and that's in fact a new norm that we have accepted, but thankfully we are moving back to the normal slowly, and we look forward to have this summit next time in the offline mode. But as everyone says that the show must go on, we didn't stop this year. Last year also we actually had the leadership summit at the same time, 25th and 26th February, and we continued with that, and we thought that we should not postpone it and we should not cancel it, and we have it on time as we do it every year in February. Last year we had wonderful speakers, and this time we have a broader set of speakers. We have a list of speakers that you can see here, and we are going to show you a short glimpse of the speakers that are joining us in these next 2 days. The wonderful thing is that IIM Jammu believes in diversity, IIM Jammu believes in leadership, and leadership, diversity, innovation, entrepreneurship, all of that form a core part of our mission and vision statements. With that thought, we decided to have these leadership summits, which are going to help not just our own students. We are opening up this for the outside world also, and we have had wonderful response from the outside also. We have people who have registered, close to 500 people have registered from different colleges all across the country. And this is actually going to be a summit which is going to be there every year, and this is going to help all of you to develop the ideas, develop the leadership skills, and that's what the aim is. As John F. Kennedy said that the learning and leadership are indispensable part of each other, and you joining this summit actually makes you leaders in itself, and that's what we see in you. What we want you to be is the leaders of the next generation. And the theme that we have picked this time is actually leadership, next leadership for the Atmanirbhar Bharat. And the aim is that we have a country, we have a nation which is going to be supported by leaders like you, who are going to show us the way. And nothing better than these platforms which could generate ideas, which could generate thoughts, which can help us to grow, which can help lead to economic growth and development. In the next 2 days, I'm not going to take much of a time. We have next 2 days full of the speakers, where we have, in fact, as I talked about the diversity, we have 6 wonderful female leaders also going to speak in over these next 2 days. And we have a set of 18 speakers from different areas, different sectors, not just from the corporate, but also from the government and different other walks of life. And I'm sure that everyone is going to enjoy these 2 days full of learning, full of kind of excitement that we have seen in our students over these days preparing for this program. To make it shorter, what I request is our IT team, if they can show us a glimpse of speakers that are joining us over the next 2 days. IT team. Thank you very much. I hope you are going to have a wonderful time. With that note, I wish everyone a wonderful learning and a wonderful 2 days. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining us. I also thank the friends from media who joined us today. And I wish everyone a wonderful day, and thank you.
Thank you for your illuminating overview of our event, sir. We would like to tease you all with a glimpse of our upcoming campus based in the foothills of Jagdi.
A mesmerizing campus in the serene and scenic valley of Jammu, truly an IIM in paradise.
Professor B.S. Sahai, Honorable Director IIM Jammu, does not need any introduction. He is known face globally in the academics and corporate world and has received many accolades for his contribution in the field. He has been the director of various institutes of national importance over 17 years. I humbly request, sir, to address the audience.
It works. Yeah, what is this? Good morning. Good morning to all of you. It's a great sunny day. Dr. Burhan, Dr. Pratik Jain, my dear colleagues, and my dear students, members from the media. First of all, I would like to welcome all of you to the third Leadership Summit. In fact, first summit when we had organized, we had very limited resources, but the speakers were so great, and that motivated all of us to organize every year. Last year again, we thought of organizing this, but because of pandemic, we couldn't organize in a physical mode. And we did it in blended mode, the way you are here, and some of the speakers are going to join from far off places. And this year again, we are organizing again in a blended mode. It's not really all online. So it's a blended mode. And I'm really thankful to my colleague, Dr. Burhan, and all the team who worked to make this third Leadership Summit in organizing and inviting great speakers. I feel so delighted to see the names. Mr. Chris Gopal Krishnan, co-founder, Infosys. Dr. Kiran Bedi, former Lieutenant Governor of Pondicherry. My colleague, Dr. and board member, Dr. Vijay Gambhire, President and Director, JK Paper Mills. JK organization is working with Sirpur Mills, Paper Mills Limited. Mr. Rohit Kansal, IAS, is Principal Secretary in Department of Higher Education, Government of Jammu and Kashmir. Mr. Ramnees Kailasam, Mr. J.B. Singh, Mr. Anil Kaul, Ms. Deepika Kumari needs a special mention because from a very small village, from a small place, Jharkhand, she did a wonderful job. And she is a professional archer, Arjuna Awardee and Padma Shri Awardee. Ms. Papiya Banerjee, Mr. Kailas Kulkarni, Ms. Rajneesh Natarajan, Mr. Ritesh Agrawal, Rear Admiral Kapil Mohan Dheer, Mr. Ranjan Thakur, Principal Secretary, Industry and Commerce, Government of Jammu and Kashmir, Vanita Dalta, Vice Chairman, NMD, and all distinguished guests. When we were finalizing this topic this year, the thing came that what should be the topic or what should be the theme for this third leadership summit? Because as you depend more on other countries, people don't recognize you. A country need to be very powerful. A country need to be very strong. A country must be self-resilient. And that is possible only when we have great leadership at the helm of affairs. And it's a great privilege and honor for every Indian that today we have a leadership we have shown the world. The world recognizes in the recent crisis also, Ukraine is. And it is our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, who said that India need to be self-reliant, had to be Atmanirbhar. And on 12th of May 2020, he called to the nation that let's be Atmanirbhar. Atmanirbhar never means that you are starting manufacturing everything at your place. But thing is that once you are strong, and if you travel across the globe, you find a change. I've seen for last more than 35 years, I'm traveling across the globe. And I've seen changes happening. Earlier, people never used to notice. All Indians are doing great job across the globe, but probably we are not getting noticed. Here is a Prime Minister who made us feel proud world over. Wherever you go, you are recognized. And that's why we felt that it's really important for all of us to have our leadership summit with a theme on leadership Gen Next for Atmanirbhar Bharat. That time, Honorable Prime Minister announced a special package of 20 lakh crores to fight COVID-19. This package is equivalent to 10% of our GDP. And that time, because we were Corona all through, campus was, while we were working, institute was closed only for a month. I think I should sit. I was trying to speak from the podium. I think that I have to sit. Huh? Sorry for interruption. So when this COVID came, and we were not prepared for that, we didn't have even PPE kit. And we tried to take help of foreign countries, tried to import it. So we didn't had, I'm sorry, because it's interruption after interruption, and that's not really good. I was trying to stand. I think I need to take some more precaution. So when India didn't had any such infrastructure, tried to import, and the quality was terrible. The Chinese PPE kit quality was terrible, and it was returned. And then Government of India decided to manufacture our own PPE kit. And within no time, we were able to manufacture more than 4.5 lakhs of PPE kit per day. And not only manufacturing and meeting our domestic requirement, but we started exporting also. So this is what India is all about. This is what India is all about, our leadership. So we must understand this thing, that when we talk of this, that why we need to be self-reliant, why we need to be Atmanirbhar. All of us know that, we believe in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that world is our family. Unfortunately, people don't realize that thing, the importance. Because our civilization is not of 500 years or 1,000 years. It is more than 5,000 years. And we must take pride that we have such rich tradition, culture, our past. And that time, India exported critical drugs like hydroxychloroquine to more than 20 countries. The medicine was exported in two categories, humanitarian ground and commercial basis, after meeting the domestic requirement. Many times people started making noise without realizing that we must serve the society, mankind, to our domestic needs as well as to the world needs. Similarly, vaccine. Vaccine was so difficult proposition, such a difficult proposition. And within shortest possible of time, developing two vaccines, it was miracle. I must tell you this thing, it is miracle. I was traveling last year to Spain, and thank God that we had our own vaccine, and that's why probably we were able to do that thing. Everything was done so fast. There are people who will keep you opposing, never bothered about that. It is part of life that if you do something great, there will be people who will keep making noise. And what Chanakya has said, that if people are making noise, then take it for granted that your king is doing some great job. Always remember this thing. So you should not be bothering about this thing. Because non-performers will keep making noise because they are non-performers. They have never performed. So what do you expect from them? So it's important for every leader to focus on what you are doing. That's really important. What you're doing for the society, what you're doing for the mankind. Don't just live for yourself. That's really important. And in this initiative, India supplied more than 75 countries. And likewise, list is so long. Like say this mobile manufacturing, all of you know that we used to import mobile from different countries. Today, India is the second largest manufacturer of mobile in the world. That's the second largest manufacturer in the world. Defense sector. Like say, it is another very interesting thing because we have to defend our country. We spend a lot of money on our defense procurement, and we used to pay foreign currency. Government decided that no, we'll start manufacturing, and not only manufacturing in our country, but we'll start exporting defense equipments to abroad. And this is what we started. And today, like say, all of you must be knowing that we had a white elephant called Ordnance Factory Board, because they were not able to produce the latest equipment. So government decided to make it more productive, more unique, and restructured into 7 companies to help improve country's self-reliance. Order worth more than 65,000 crores have already been given to these companies. Prime Minister also spelled out his vision regarding defense-related export, and we have already started doing that. Another major thrust of, like there are so many initiatives have been taken. So many schemes have been developed. While the gap between the poor and rich has to be bridged, every poor has the right to have minimum level of quality of life. What is important is that this government is promoting and motivating all youngsters like you that to start your own companies. And it's so heartening to note that after the US and China, India now has the largest number of unicorns. All of you must be reading this thing. So India has the third largest number of unicorns. Today, India has 94 unicorns. This is the latest data? Yeah. They are not only developing innovative solutions, but are generating large-scale employment. And out of all these unicorns, 44 unicorns were born last year, that is 2021. Within the initial 2 months of this year, more than 10 unicorns have already been born in India. And you know what is their average age? It is less than 30 years. It is less than 30 years. What is your average is? 24, 25 years. Now you have to take a call that whether you want to be a job seeker or a job creator. Here is an opportunity for all of you. During our time, I wish such type of schemes were there. Many times people that keep asking me that this is my 18th year as the director of national level institutes, setting up 2 IIMs as a founder director. And people keep asking me, what motivates you? Let me tell you that I enjoy whatever I do. I enjoy it. I live every moment. I don't think for myself that, okay, what I'm getting in return of. I simply enjoy it. And joy of giving something, doing something, learning something is totally different. So it's really important for all of you. You guys are young. You have to take a call that whether you want to be a job seeker, then you will be living. It's a very simple, get married, have kids, and have a small family, have car, bungalows, what or not, and then finished. I think the purpose of life is much more. It is beyond that what we are doing for the society. And you are the lucky ones who are here, who have been able to get admission in IIM system. You are the lucky ones where without giving any collateral, you can get loans. So choice is yours. We have said many times that IIM Jammu has this policy that to start your company, we have our this Center for Entrepreneurship, Innovation and Skill Development, one in Srinagar and other in Jammu. Our new campus is coming up. We have earmarked a very large space for entrepreneurship development, for innovation. So you have a choice. You can incubate your company here. You will be given 2 years to do. I'm sure that you will succeed. By the way, if you fail in your business, your venture, your startups, then again, you can come for the placement. But that 2 years can change your life, mind it. Here you are going to work for somebody, and there people are going to work for you. You are going to run many families. So I think it's really important for all of you to decide what do you want to do in life. Yes, initial years may be a bit tough, but just imagine that at the age of 30 or so, you become billionaire. You become millionaire. Choice is yours. So again, I would like to say this thing that, when we talk of this leadership is not only for running a company. It is not about that. Yes, there also entrepreneurship is required. Entrepreneurship skill is required. Because whether you work for yourself or for somebody else, if you're taking initiative, you're welcome in the company. If you're not welcome there. But I think that we are born and we must do some for the society, we must do for the nation. Everybody claims and counterclaims that they will provide jobs. It is just not possible. It is just not possible for any government across the globe to give 100% employment to everybody. That is just not possible. Then who is going to give the job? People like you, who will create their company, who will run their company, who will employ the people, and that is a great service to the nation, great service to the society. I'm quite sure that this 2-day Leader Summit, you will be finding that there are many speakers who started their own company. And the great example is that Chris is coming. Infosys, he was one of the founder member of Infosys. That's a very large company now. But this Ritesh Agrawal is also coming. Yeah. So Ritesh of Oyo, is quite young, less than 30. So this is the band, you can just imagine. So I'm sure that this 2 days Leadership Summit is going to be a great learning to all of you. Enjoy every moment, try to learn, try to contribute. And once again, I will call upon all of you that just forget about the job and take a pledge that you will start your own venture, and you will, and let me tell you, will feel very proud of that. Okay, I will say that, look, this guy is my student. So, and you bring laurel to the institute, you bring laurels to the country, you'll bring laurels to your family, your society. And above all, you're going to serve the society and serve so many people. So once again, I welcome all the eminent speakers who are going to join. Please join me in giving a big hand to Burhan and his team, whole team, for organizing this thing. And I wish this Leadership Summit a grand success. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful and profound speech, sir. Your words always enlighten the path of the student community.
Thank you, sir, for kickstarting Leadership Summit 3.0 on such a high and positive note. We would now request Dr. Prateek Jain, Chairperson, Center for Entrepreneurship, Innovations and Skill Development, IIM Jammu, to deliver the word of thanks.
Thank you, Director Sir, for sharing your words of wisdom with all of us. I'm sure we all of us are, feeling really motivated, especially the decision on, giving you a 2-year period for trying your own venture. So that is something, which really needs maybe applause from all of us. So yeah. So a very warm good morning to all of you, friends. I would like to thank all the participants of this Leadership Summit. I'll be a bit short because the speaker had already joined in. And I'll begin by thanking the speakers who will be sharing their wisdom and insight with us over the next 2 days. I would also like to thank the Summit Chair, Professor B.S. Sahai, Director IIM Jammu, who is the real inspiration behind this event. My colleague, Dr. Mukbil Burhan, had been taking massive efforts in making this summit a grand success. Sincere thanks to you. I wish to thank all the students' team who were working tirelessly in making this event a reality. Good job, team. Really nice job. And our admin department, our IT team, they are working around the clock to ensure that this event goes on smoothly without any technical glitch. Thanks to you. Finally, I would like to thank Jivitam, our strategic partner for this event, and to all the participants of this Leadership Summit. Also to mention the media friends from media who are here to cover this event, and this event will be getting a good publicity through them, so the awareness will spread a lot. So I'm sure next 2 days will bring in a lot of deliberations and learnings for all of us. I wish you all the success for this summit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I please request everyone to kindly stand up for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा। विंद हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा। तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभाशिष मागे। गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे।
Thank you, everyone. Now we'll start with the panel discussion.
Vladimir Lenin once said, "There are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happen." On that note, we are set to begin the discussion on the first topic of Leadership Summit 3.0, which is the Great Reset, navigating through disruptions at the workplace. In this dynamic world, there is a dire need for corporate houses to constantly adapt to changes in the business environment to remain relevant in their industry. The practices followed in the industry today were once a disruption to the pre-established status quo, and what are today referred to as traditional practices were once contemporary, which the industry has gradually accepted. These range from a 4-day work week, remote work, and metaverse, to name a few. The onset of digital transformation has also contributed to the virtual environment we are today in and the one that we function in and must soon immerse into. Through this topic, the panel will try to focus on those aspects and emphasize on the underlying intricacies.
IIM Jammu takes pride in welcoming Mr. Chris Gopal Krishnan to the Leadership Summit 3.0 Leadership Next for Atmanirbhar Bharat. Mr. Gopal Krishnan is the chairman of Acceler Ventures, an accelerator that helps startup during the early stage of their business journey. Recognized as a global business and technology thought leader, he was voted the top CEO IT services category in the Institutional Investors inaugural ranking of Asia's top executive. So was also selected as one of the winners of the second Asian Corporate Director Recognition Awards by the Corporate Governance Asia in 2011. Mr. Gopal Krishnan serves as the Board of Governors of Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology and is the Chairman Board of Governors of Triple IT Bangalore.
While the description that we give him right now is quite short and humbling, the person is way beyond words that we can put in order to describe the great magnitude of achievements that the person has and the feat that he has achieved over time in the shaping of the entire corporate industry. So, sir, Indian Institute of Management Jammu welcomes you to the third edition of Leadership Summit. We have been eagerly awaiting this opportunity to interact with you and have many questions bogging us that we'd love for you to address. For instance,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you very much,
So
sir.
thank you very much for the kind introduction. Thank you very much for inviting me to this leadership summit. I compliment IIM Jammu, and I hope that in the next edition or maybe at another occasion, I will be there physically present. But today, of course, by virtue of technology, I'm spiritually and mentally present there. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. We too look forward to someday hosting you, sir. But I guess for today, your words are going to be sufficient for us. And we are sure that the entire discussion that we had till now is something that is really going to inspire our students. And the session is sure to make a hit. So, sir, we have a lot of questions that have been bogging our students for a while now. And we have compiled some of them. For instance,
Sure.
first, yes, sir. For instance, sir, as a co-founder of a leading IT consulting and services firm and a successful venture capitalist, you have been a first-hand witness to our industries transitioning through various phases of uncertainty. Now, could you take us through your journey and your personal challenges as a visionary leader?
See, life is never a straight line. It zigzags, whether it's at the individual level or at the company level. And in fact, in some sense, the uncertainties are increasing. See, we are in a global village, as some people would call it. It's a very interconnected world that we are living in. So that that brings its own pulls and pushes and uncertainties. Second, we are seeing large number of new technologies that are going to impact our lives and our businesses. Again, there is a new startup emerging somewhere in the world that is going to challenge the status quo of our businesses. So that brings its own uncertainty. It's also possible that this emerging technology may obsolete some of the knowledge that we have and some of the products and the services that we have. Again, that brings its own uncertainty. If I look at my own personal journey, I started thinking that I will become a medical doctor, right? Didn't get admission to MBBS. In those days, we didn't have joint entrance examination and things like that. So each college you have to apply. Applied for one college in my city, didn't get admission. Took physics as a major. And from physics, I transitioned to computer science. I did my MTech computer science at IIT Madras. I was at the right place at the right time. This is way back in 1979. Personal computer was introduced in 78. So, when the computer revolution really started scaling up, we started Infosys in 1981. And as they say, rest is history, right? So definitely, you have to flow with the, you have to move with the flow. You have to take advantage of opportunities that are provided to you. The same opportunities are provided to multiple people, multiple organizations. It's those people who grab these opportunities, grab these challenges, and see them as opportunities for them to show their capabilities, show their strengths. I think these are the people who are going to succeed. There will be some failures. Hopefully, these failures are not going to put you down forever, and you then rise up and go forward again. So that's what my learning is. Even at Infosys, I've seen that the business has transitioned through technology transitions. It has transitioned through multiple downturns in the economy. It has transitioned through new competitors emerging. It has transitioned through several changes that have happened. Even today, some people say software development will be completely automated, right? You don't need anybody to write code. So you have to understand the implications and manage these transitions. Most importantly, you have to make sure that you stay relevant. You stay relevant to society, to your customers, to people around you. And if you are adding value every single day, I'm confident in saying that you will be able to manage.
Yes, sir. So, as you said, the industry has and is undergoing changes at a very fast pace, be it transitioning from 4-day work week to augmented reality and metaverse. But, sir, what are your views on exponential pace of disruptions in the industry that are, happening today?
See, the exponential change that is happening is only one part of the economy. That's the innovation that is happening through emerging technologies, through new technologies. That's where the exponential change is happening. And from a state, from a economy perspective, these exponential changes are very important to tap into. If you tap into that part of the economy, your economy will grow faster. So for example, in 1979-80, when I joined the workforce, the global GDP was $11 trillion. Today, as you know, it's almost $100 trillion. That means in my lifetime, in the last 40 years, I've seen economy grow almost 10 times. In some sense, that's on top of the digital computer revolution, the internet revolution, the mobile computing revolution, all of these things that you talk about. India, for example, was about $160 billion. Today, India is about $3 trillion. So we have grown 20 times almost, right, in the last 40 years. Again, and most of this have happened in the last 25 to 30 years, starting 1991, when we opened the economy and unleashed the animal spirits in entrepreneurs and startups, etc. The economy grew very fast. As individual also, I have benefited because I rode on the digital computing wave. So my advice to you is, don't fear these, embrace these, look at these as opportunities. So if you are going to pass out, let's say this year, next year, look at which are the fastest growing companies that I can follow, maybe join, which are the technologies that are going to change the world. Can I specialize in these? Can I find a job in these areas, or can I drive that change? I was lucky that I was part of the digital computer revolution. I had a role to play in in making those changes happen, making those transitions happen. And I've seen introduction of digital computer in every single industry. Initially my career started with working with manufacturing companies and distribution companies, etc. Then went into banking, financial services, telecoms, high tech, retail, all of those. We saw digital computers changing each of these industries, and that's the story of the IT services industry in India, Infosys in India. That's a story of my own career. that I was able to see these technologies changing these industries and took advantage of those. So that's my advice. Don't fear them, embrace them, figure out how you can play a role, and the bigger the role you play, all power to you.
That's very well said, sir. In fact, you rightly mentioned like Infosys about the time of inception was around the 90s when the digital revolution had just started to enter India. In fact, not even that much it penetrated. However, these are some opportunities that industries like yourself have leveraged in the past, and this is something expected in the future. And like you rightly mentioned, there are a lot of opportunities right now as well with the onset of automation and more digitalization and Industry 5.0, some may say. So, sir, as we transition into the fourth industrial revolution, what lessons do you feel that we as a nation can take and our companies can derive from the preceding three revolutions? And also, how can growing nations like India capitalize on this wave for inclusive development and global competitiveness?
So I'll take these as two separate questions. First is about how can we take advantage of this. So we need to make sure that we introduce these technologies into our educational system. So for example, way back in the 70s, India brought or bought the most modern computers. I passed out with an M.Tech computer science. So knowledge and professionals were there to take advantage of these new technologies. Second, the government created a environment where the IT services industry can flourish. It was an export focused industry. They gave support for the industry through tax breaks, allowed us to export software, import computers, etc. So access to the technology promoted the growth of this industry. So government has an enabling role in ensuring that these new technologies are, the knowledge is created, the talent is created, and a business environment that's conducive for that. In today's world, of course, government must also make sure that the economy attracts investment. And as your director rightly said, in the last 1 year, India has attracted more than 25 to $30 billion of investment. So we are able to attract investment into the country for triggering these technologies. Now, to the second part of your question, which is inclusive development. I think this is very, very important. See, in the 20th century, even though we saw very high growth, we also saw disparity increasing. We saw issues related to climate change and sustainability growing. We saw that many of the innovations were not affordable, equitably affordable. So there are people who don't have education today. There are people who don't have access to internet and access to digital technology and things like that. So in the 21st century, and this is the world that you are going to create, I think you must make an attempt, not an attempt. I think you must make this happen to create a more inclusive society, more affordable society, more sustainable society, more livable world. I think this is extremely, extremely important. You have the opportunity to create a better world, create a better India. And I think you must indeed do this. This is an opportunity uniquely Indian. The reason is India is not yet developed. We are still a poor country. So you can actually create an India that becomes a model, that becomes an exemplar for rest of the world to how to create a better society. So this is what I wish that each one of you will take up as your personal agenda, your personal challenge.
Thank you, sir. So, with an inherent digital divide in the workplace, organizations face hurdles in their endeavor to create a culture of technology and acceptance. With a focus on mobility, agility, and resilience, how can top leadership bridge this gap and better leverage emerging technologies in response to COVID-19?
So, COVID-19 accelerated the transition to digital. I think we have done a very good job. especially the IT services industry. I'm proud to say, I'm, of course, today out of the industry, but proud to say that the industry transitioned overnight, literally overnight, moved almost 5 million employees to work from home. And no customer, no client of the industry suffered during this transition. In fact, I would venture to say the rest of the world was working. Rest of the economies were chugging along because the Indian IT services industry did this without anybody realizing this trend. That's a massive transition. Working all from office to working all from home, moving the technology to home, bringing the connectivity to home, bringing security to home, getting all the necessary approvals from every client and getting the approval from the government to work from home. All kinds of things were done overnight. And of course, the industry did its part, the government did its part, and the customers supported this because none of them had any option but to do this. And you saw that, from the results, the industry grew faster than ever in the last 10 years in this year, right? So that shows that we have figured it out and we know how to do this. And today, as things become normal, we are seeing that employees actually don't want to come back now to the old way of working from an office, stick to a let's say 8 to 5 work day and things like that. They want the flexibility, they want to work from anywhere, etc. So going forward, we will see a hybrid environment. I think we will be better off with a hybrid environment. I believe that this resilience is going to benefit all of us, and it will also give us more options. So, for example, women sometimes cannot participate in the work environment, right? So with this, they get option to work from home. Part-time work is possible. All of these things are possible. So a hybrid work environment is here to stay, and we need to take advantage of this. We can now bring employees from anywhere in the world. We can, in education, bring teachers from anywhere in the world. All kinds of flexibility can be introduced into our work life because of this hybrid mode of working, and it's enabled through technology. If this had happened 10 years back, I think the disruption would have been even more. I think, in some sense, we saw this crisis as an opportunity to accelerate several technologies, and it worked. And the future, I think, is better because of that. And companies and businesses and business leaders are realizing the power of this. So this will continue as a hybrid work environment in the future.
That's rightly said, sir. Like a really positive thing about this pandemic, even I agree with, is the accelerative nature of all of the disruptions that were underway, however, at a very slow pace. Maybe because of the urgency and because of the necessity to pull ahead, these things happened overnight. Like you rightly mentioned, this year has been higher than the previous 9 years. Sir, but also there are a lot of uncertainty. For instance, like businesses worldwide are facing uncertainty in every aspect today, from demand to supply chain. Even in terms of analytics stepping in, this uncertainty and the predictability is only something that is remotely being looked into. It's not something that is completely optimal. So, sir, how can businesses treat this uncertainty, and what is the role of leadership in managing the crisis situation and beyond?
See, the nature of a crisis, and especially a crisis of this proportion, is that these are what are called black swan events, right? You don't anticipate these things because a probability of something like this is very, very small, very remote. So you don't plan for these things. You plan for many other things, but you don't plan for these things. So in the IT services industry, for example, all the companies are planned for disruption in power, they have so they have multiple backup systems, etc. They have a plan for one city getting shut down, so they have an alternate site somewhere else. They have a backup development center. They have backup for people. So let's say a few people fall sick, how does the business run? So all of these things were factored in, but nobody factored in saying that every development center will be shut down. Nobody will be able to work from an office. Nobody will be able to work sitting next to another individual. That I don't think we ever expected. So this was a real example of a black swan event, but credit to the services industry, because they can now work remotely. They transition to work from home. Manufacturing, on the other hand, cannot transition to work from home, etc. So they got hurt. Services industries where bringing people together, like a restaurant, like a hotel, right? People in close proximity, airline industry, where people sit together on a flight or a bus or things like that, they all took a hit. So we need to understand from these things that sometimes unprecedented events, unexpected events happen, and how quickly can you transition? I think that's very important. Uncertainty is increasing, and we also figured out dependencies, the supply chain you talked about, right? So before the pandemic, India was not manufacturing ventilators. The demand for ventilators very small. Then suddenly, the demand for ventilators skyrocketed, exponential demand growth, right? And the entire world was scrambling to get ventilators, so we couldn't find even supply for that. So, few people in academic institutions like IIT Kanpur, the DRDO, the Government of India, private sector all came together, designed a ventilator, quickly manufactured them, and we became surplus in ventilators, all manufactured domestically in India. And we were exporting. Today, we can export ventilators to the rest of the world. We created that capability very quickly. So, these are lessons for us to learn. These are lessons that should prompt us to think about unexpected events and what can be planned for these things. Sometimes it may not be easy to plan for these things. Even the vaccine itself is a fantastic story of resilience in some sense. The scientists were working on RNA technology for 40 years. They had figured out how to introduce RNA molecules into a human body from late 2000 onwards. But when the crisis struck and we realized that we can use the RNA technology to create a vaccine overnight. Literally, they created the vaccine in 48 hours, right? And of course, it had to be manufactured. So capacity was created to manufacture these things. It has to be distributed. Emergency use approvals were given by governments around the world, and billions of vaccines were given to people in India. We were able to, in a cost-effective manner, because again, India is a poor country, we vaccinated more than we gave more than 1.5 billion vaccines already. And today, hopefully, this pandemic is waning and behind us. So these are all wonderful examples, and we need to, learn from these things, saying that, in today's world, unexpected events are happening more frequently, due to climate change. Now, war, right? The Ukraine war. I don't think anybody could have predicted this thing. So the role of leadership is to have resilience, have a plan of action, and in case where it's an unexpected event, scramble, figure out how to manage the transition, how to make sure that you bring the situation back to normal, how to take care of people, how to take care of your customers, how to take care of your employees. I think all of these things are very, very important. And things like manufacturing, people working in the construction industry, they got hurt very badly. I think we need to have a social security mechanism, a a safety net for such people. That's also a learning for the future, that sometimes we forget that there are sections of society that get impacted unequally, and we need to make sure that we protect their livelihood and things like that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So as you mentioned that, there are uncertainties which we cannot be prepared for, and industries have to evolve eventually. So to build a disruptive innovative economy, risk taking is indispensable. So how can organizations practice precautious risk taking while also building the capacity and preparedness to manage said skill?
See, every organization has to grow. If it does not grow, it starts, decaying in some sense, and at some point may die. And that is true for. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please
Okay,
go.
so that's true for individuals and organizations. So from an organization perspective, the ability to take risk and managing those risks are the capabilities that are very, very important. So let me explain, this very carefully. First of all, you need to look at how you create a set of metrics to measure the innovative capability of an organization. So for example, organizations like 3M or Procter & Gamble, etc., have a metric which says what percentage of your revenue, that is your current revenue, comes from products and services that were introduced in the last year, the year before, etc. So what percentage of your revenue is literally coming from new products and services? And companies have taken extreme numbers, like 3M, for example. They said 1/3 of our revenues must come from products that are less than 3 years old. That means every 3 years, 100% of the revenues are from new products. That's a very aggressive stand to take, which means that they need to then figure out how to create a pipeline of new products and make sure that this pipeline continues to feed them with new revenue streams. So that's at the top level. That's at setting some goals and things like that. Then you then break down, your cash flow into what part will go into supporting existing businesses, maintaining existing businesses, maintaining existing customers, and what part will go into research, R&D, and innovation, supporting new products, etc. You'll have to then figure out who will do this. So you manage the risk. You say that I will spend out of the investments that I'm able to make, I will spend, let's say, 10% or 15%, or some cases 5% on research and development of new products and new services, etc. Right? And the more you spend, the faster your products will get renewed. So if you're a technology company today, you typically spend 10 to 15% on R&D, etc. Now, to mitigate the risk, because these new products could fail also, it may not succeed. It may not succeed at the time frame that you believe it will happen. So you need to have a pipeline of new products from outside the company. So that is the reason for acquisitions. That's a reason for working with startups and innovative companies. And when you find something, either you acquire that company or you bring those products and market those products with your own products and create new revenue streams, new channels, new markets, etc. So, there is a way to manage this process. It is a very well planned, disciplined process in any organization, and successful organizations have a way of doing these things. If you look at any large technology company today, they're constantly looking at typically it's adjacent areas, but new areas, completely new areas are also possible. Let's take a company like Tesla, right? They're looking at electric vehicles, they're looking at new battery technology, they're looking at space exploration and things like that. They're looking at, can we look at new materials for buildings? Then they're looking at technology for neural link, right? Connecting the brain to the computer. All of these things, some of them will play out, some of them will play out much longer, not happen in the short term. But every company must have a pipeline of innovations. It has to be managed, and it has to actually feed into the future revenues of the company, the growth of the company. You also need to bring in new talent in order to bring those knowledge into the company, etc. So this is a standard practice in well-run companies.
Thank you very much, sir. Due to paucity of time, we'll wanted to take one last question, and like you rightly mentioned about talent, sir, and we really wanted to hear from you on this, that there is a significant digital skill gap in our country, which is perhaps one of the causes of lags in widespread digitalization. Now, what in your opinion must be the key areas of focus for emerging and incumbent corporate houses in their pursuit of a skilled and equipped workforce to lead the change?
So, again, the two parts of the question. One is, your own employees and making sure that, they have the relevant skills, which means that you need to have a program to retrain your employees on an ongoing basis, continuous basis. So at Infosys, for example, we actually budget about 20 days in a year per employee for retraining. And this time is costed in the budget. Money is allocated, training infrastructure is created in order to make sure that people get continuously retrained. This is very important in the IT industry because technology is changing quite rapidly. I trained on the mainframe computers. Today, people are talking about Internet of Things and sensors and things like that. Right? Technology has changed quite rapidly, and the programming languages, everything is very different. You need to have a pipeline of new talent coming in as new technologies emerge, right? So you need to have your ears closer to the ground, network into where these technologies are being researched on, and maybe recruit from these places to bring in that knowledge into the organization. So that's on the organization side. When you look at outside, because your products and services must be used by consumers, customers, etc. So, for example, digitization of the financial services industry in India, right? One of the biggest challenges is digital literacy, access to apps in the vernacular languages. So these now, government has to promote these things, maybe seed these things, maybe regulate and say that all the applications must be available in vernacular languages, as well as you need to encourage private sector to innovate and address these issues, etc. We need to make sure that digital infrastructure goes to the remotest area, internet goes to the remotest area, etc. And at some point, we probably need to say that internet access is a right for every citizen in the country, and it's the responsibility of the government to make sure that internet access is available affordably and with the quality that is required. So these are, I think, programs that we need to do. And digital literacy, again, for the common person, we need to ensure that there are programs and also apps, applications in the languages that they can read and write, or read and use a mobile device to access these services. So these are things that we need to do on a proactive basis.
Thank you, sir, for your very relevant words. I'm sure our attendees got a fresh perspective. We are grateful that you took out the time to address the students of IIM Jammu. We would like to invite Dr. Mukbil Burhan, sir, to speak a few kind words to Mr. Chris Gopal Krishnan.
By the way, thank you very much for inviting me again, and I really enjoyed the interaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. It's been a wonderful session for our students. I'm sure that all of them have enjoyed, although just unfortunately because of the COVID, we couldn't have our speakers here, but we look forward to having you sometime in our campus, and that would be an amazing thing for all of us. I'm very thankful to you for sparing time from your busy schedule to join us and talk to our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all, and all the best.
We would like to invite Mr. Rohit Kansal, Principal Secretary to the Government of Jammu and Kashmir, Departments of Higher Education and Information. Sir is a member of batch 1995 of the Indian Administration Services and the official spokesperson of the government. He has, in his 2-decade-long career in public services, held challenging public policy assignments in diverse sectors such as higher education, information, infrastructure, clean energy, financial services, among others.
Sir has worked in Jammu and Kashmir for over 2 decades, where he has led diverse portfolios and assignments. As head of the Power and Energy Department in J&K, he had taken a number of steps to make J&K energy surplus by harnessing its immense hydropower and by venturing into renewable energy. He has keenly been involved in the policy framework of the ambitious Indian National Solar Mission, as well as policy interventions in the decentralized space to promote energy access.
Sir also holds a management graduation degree from Indian Institute of Management, Kolkata, and a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Thapar University. He has been conferred the Chief Minister's Republic Day Award for Public Services in 2018 in Jammu and Kashmir. Without taking much time, I would like to say we are very elated to welcome you, sir. Please grace the session with your words of wisdom. The virtual stage is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Sahai, Director of the IIM Jammu, Dr. Mukbil Burhan, Coordinator of the conference, distinguished listeners who are virtually present with us, very young and dear students who are organizing this conference. It's a matter of immense joy, pleasure, and indeed honor for me to be invited to speak to so many young minds today. And speaking to young minds is always invigorating. I'm here not for what I'm here to tell you, but to what from learn to you. And I think the high point of this discussion will be the inputs from so many young minds I hope to take back. The theme of the session is navigating in an era of uncertainty in work. So I will speak to you about navigating in an era of change, and I will look at education, the future of education, work, the changing nature of work, and skills. Let me take you 500 years back. It's the 29th of May, 1453. The city is Constantinople, that we now call Istanbul, and a large attacking army led by a 21-year-old general called Mehmed is at the gates of Constantinople. As it happens, Mehmed and his hordes capture Constantinople, change the course of history. The fall of Constantinople marks the fall of the 1000 or maybe 1500-year-old Roman Empire. It also marks, in a way, the end of the medieval era and also the beginning of the Enlightenment in Europe. Mehmed goes on to become Mehmed the Conqueror and establish the Ottoman Empire. And Europe sees the first beginnings of the Enlightenment of the Renaissance. Change is the only constant, and uncertainty is the only certainty. This was articulated and espoused nearly half a millennium before the Commons era, Titus of Ephesus. And Ephesus, as some of you may know, also falls in Turkey, the same country in which Istanbul falls. And Heraclitus then said, everything flows and nothing abides. Everything gives way, nothing stays fixed. And Heraclitus, who was often called the obscure philosopher, goes on to add for good measure, you could not step twice into the same river. Change has been as old as humanity. It has coexisted with humanity. The history of mankind is the history of change, the rise and fall of dynasties, struggles, the survival of the fittest. And history has always thrown challenges to mankind to either change, innovate, or be wiped out. Closely associated with change is the idea of the future. Mankind has been driven by the constant realization of an imminent change and has always dreamt of the future. We all tend to think of the future as something which is distant, something which is far off, yonder, beyond the horizon, a bit fearful, a bit romantic, something that will come one day and be with us. Which is why our visions of the future, our thoughts of the future are also mixed, ambiguous, tinged with hope, with fear and apprehension. We have thought of a dysfunctional future. We have thought of a utopian future, which is why Aldous Huxley's Brave New World coexists well with H.G. Wells' A Modern Utopia. However, the future is not something which is over the horizon. The future is not something which is over there. The future is here. It coexists with the present. The present is constantly yielding to the future. And as we move from the present, the future coexisting with the present is always there with us. The present and the future are actually a kind of continuum existing together. And I'm reminded of Albert Einstein, who when he was asked in 1938 replied, I never think of the future. It comes soon enough. And we have had no greater example of this than the pandemic which hit us. And as I was listening to my predecessor, Chris Gopalakrishnan, who said that this was one of the biggest black swan events, perhaps the most unpredictable and genuinely black swan events. The COVID became the defining moment of the decade. But I must warn you, I must tell you, the COVID did not bring about change. And as I have mentioned, change has been always with us. But what did COVID do? It yanked us out of our comfort zones. It accelerated the pace of change. It ravaged a large number of sectors. It destroyed a large number of economies. But it also altered inexorably a large number of other sectors. So in that sense, it altered, it modified, it changed, it destroyed, but it also gave birth to the new. And it also helped us accelerate this pace of change to look at the derivation, the origin of a number of new things. We are talking about skills and education. So, while COVID destroyed some sectors, in the education sector, technology and online teaching became the dominant mode of instruction. And from being a facilitator, technology actually became a doer. Anywhere learning moved to everywhere learning, and the long shadow of the future bared itself prematurely. I say this with caution because even before the pandemic, we were thinking of changing education. We were thinking of the way in which education is delivered, in which instruction is given, and why this be so, I will come to in a moment. But the pandemic forced this change upon us. So as we see, hopefully, what is the last of the pandemic? The question to be asked now is, now that there is no longer the compulsion of what the pandemic forced on us, what is the way forward? How do we look at the future? What does the future of education look like? Or what should the future of education be? Is it going to be all technology, the university in your cell phone paradigm, or is there something more to it? And the future of education is going to be linked to the future of skills. And the future of skills is going to be linked to the future of work, which is why I said I will talk about education, skills, and work all in one. So how do we impart the skills and the knowledge that will enable the youth of tomorrow, the learners of today, to navigate a rapidly changing workplace? To prepare for the new world of work, we would really need to reimagine our education and our skills, not just what is being imparted, not just what skills are being given, but also how these skills are being given. And to understand that, we need to look for a moment at what education actually is. Particularly, I am confining myself to higher education here. At its very basic level, education does three major things. It provides individuals the wherewithal necessary to be useful and productive parts of an economic system of a society and contribute in an economic sense to individuals as individuals and to the nation as a whole. But education is much more than just economics, much more than just skilling. It also imparts knowledge for its own sake. And what is that own sake? For reason, for humanism, for fairness, for justice, for equitability, for the courage to stand up for what is ethical and right and build a fair nation and a fair world. Education is one step more than that also. And here it's the individual. Education helps the innate flowering of the individual. What to you management students would be self-actualization in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And what in Shakespeare's words or to the Renaissance man would be the full flowering of the potential of humankind. And some of you who would have read literature would be reminded of what Shakespeare said in Hamlet. What a piece of work is man. How noble in reason. Hovering of the individual that the education and the education system is supposed to provide. But let me begin with, and let me talk about skills, and let me talk about knowledge and skills in the context of the new workplace in the context of the world of work as it will exist tomorrow. Now, this world of work which will exist tomorrow is as exciting as it is scary. It is as dangerous as it is good. And why should this be so? Because to begin with, the idea of a stable future, a thing of the future. And what is the world of tomorrow? What is the world of work of tomorrow? A series of progressively growing, increasing, enlarging, improving skill sets, much like a series of projects where you incrementally increase your knowledge with every step. And we are already seeing parts of that happening today. You'll be surprised to know that half of the jobs which the school children of today will be doing tomorrow have not yet been invented. Therefore, the skills demanded in the future are going to be drastically different from the skills that are available in the past or even in the present. As I said, school children of today may work in areas and jobs which have not yet been invented today or no longer exist today. The technology that will power the jobs to be done tomorrow may be done remotely. And therefore, as Time magazine predicted, the biggest problem of tomorrow's world may actually be loneliness. So what is the new nature of work? What is the new nature of skills going to look like? McKinsey calls it the era of capability. And it goes on to call it the age of soft skills in a hard world. Now, how should this oxymoronic thing come about? And I will illustrate with a survey or a study. There was a survey done or a study done in the last decade or maybe in the last 5 years. And this was done in Europe and America, but it is fairly relevant to our world as well, where researchers looked at what kind of skills are gaining currency in these 5 years in which the survey was carried out. A 55% increase in technological skills, which is to be expected. But it also showed a 24% rise in social and emotional skills and an 8% rise in higher cognitive skills. Quite naturally, recruitment managers report that as the workplace is hardening, and what do I mean by hardening? As lower order cognitive skills are increasingly being replaced by mechanical skills, by robots, by machines, lower order repetitive jobs are vanishing or going out. Lower cognitive skills, repetitive jobs are no longer in demand, and they are being replaced by complex, ambiguous, problem-solving tasks. All this is to be expected. But what is surprising and counterintuitive, that as the workplace is hardening, the need for softer skills is increasing. And what are these softer skills? One, dealing with ambiguity, dealing with complexity, dealing with change, dealing with flatter organizations, dealing with peers, consensus building, but more importantly, empathy, concern, and more surprisingly, communication. So you have these two very strange Venn circles, if I may so, a much higher level requirement of technological skills and a much higher level requirement of social skills. So 30 to 40% of the growth jobs of tomorrow are going to require, as I said, soft skills. And the biggest skills will be leading through complexity, leading through change, ambiguity, solving problems in a constantly changing milieu, in a state of flux, and therefore you will need to keep upgrading your skills, keep running like on a treadmill to even remain at the same spot and not be pushed behind. Focus on change and also empathy, collaboration, flatter hierarchies, and fluidities across space and time. Now, what is happening to imparters of skills? If these are the skills required, what is happening on the, and if these are the skills required, this is so to say the demand side. So what is happening on the supply side, which is our higher educational institutions? And what I say will be startling, but not surprising. And I'm talking of some of the best higher educational institutions globally, not just in India or Asia. 96% of universities and institutions think that they are fully preparing the workers of tomorrow, and they are equipping the learners of today with the skills of tomorrow. However, only 10% of recruiters share this view, who feel that not just what is being imparted, but also how it is being imparted is grossly out of tune with the requirements of tomorrow. A Stanford University study done in the context of Indian learners highlighted that while we are very good at repetitive learning by rote tasks, organized tasks, we are not so good at complex, ambiguous tasks that require us to generate order from entropy. And not surprisingly, you have the spectacle of a large number of unemployed with a large number of unemployable, certainly in the Indian context. So the challenge before the higher educational institutions of tomorrow and today is how to bridge this employment gap, how to equip the learners of today with the skill sets required for tomorrow, and which is why the new educational policy, which the government of India unveiled last year, emphasizes research, innovation, flexibility, multidisciplinarity, exchange of credits, dismantling barriers between the so-called natural sciences and the so-called human sciences, dismantling the barriers between, so to say, mechanical engineering and philosophy, learning by doing, more practical experience, flatter hierarchies, and so on. The other important feature that is going to dominate the workplace is innovation. Technology, as I said, is going to become the new alphabet of tomorrow. It goes without saying. And so all instruction necessarily has to include a strong technological component, which will be a sine qua non. But technology is different from innovation. So there has to be a strong ecosystem of innovation as well. Now, how does this translate in the Indian context, in the context of India? In 2020, UNIDO, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, did a study on industrializing in the digital age. Now, one of its findings were that only 10 countries are leading the development and adoption of what is called ADP, Advanced Digital Production Technologies, at scale, not in an isolated manner, at scale. And India was perhaps the only lower middle income country to make it to this group of followers in production, and it shares this space with Australia, Canada, Singapore, and Spain. But what it also said that in the Indian ecosystem, there were islands of ADB, islands of digital production that coexisted with a lot of physical production. And therefore, while we are getting there, we need a lot more to be done to actually reach there. But the good news is, in the Indian context, that we have all the building blocks which are required for a modern technological industrial revolution 4.0 infrastructure. And you're all aware the medieval age harnessed the power of animals, the animal power, and some mechanical power. The first industrial revolution harnessed the power of steam and mechanics. The second industrial revolution harnessed the power of energy. The third industrial revolution had some computers coming in. And the fourth industrial revolution harnesses the power of technology, innovation, the Internet of Things. And many of you are familiar with Rockefeller's story of using 39 drops to solder, using 40 drops to solder, and asking his managers if they could not do it with 39. They did it with 39, saving Rockefellers billions of dollars of money. And that is routinely being done by IoT, by analytics, by big data in Industrial Revolution 4.0. But coming back to the Indian ecosystem vis-a-vis Industrial Revolution 4.0, I said the building blocks are in place. And what are the building blocks? One, people, exceptionally young workforce, what we commonly call a demographic strength, a demographic dividend, 2/3 under 35, 1/2 under 25. Second, an ecosystem of ranked India as the first in Central and South Asian region, second in lower middle income groups, and 46th among 132 economies worldwide. The last figure may not sound very impressive, but I need to remind you that we jumped 35 places in 6 years. We are ranked third in the world in terms of attracting investments for technology transactions. We have leapfrogged from being one of the most connected nations by moving from 400 million internet connections in 2017 to 800 million internet connections this year. We have urban dynamos, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Gurgaon, pioneering innovation and embracing technologies. As on February 2022, we had 88 unicorns with a valuation of $295.99 billion. 44 of these were born in 2021. And in the first 53 days of 2022, we have added 10 unicorns. The World Economic Forum has already started a center for the fourth industrial revolution in India, and it is being given some support by the Niti Aayog. The focus is on drones, artificial intelligence, blockchain technologies, other emerging technologies, AR, VR, machine learning, robotics are also getting traction. And I spoke about the new education policy with its focus on research, flexibility, multidisciplinarity. And of course, many of you are familiar with the production-linked incentive, the PLI scheme, which has selected emerging high technology sunrise sectors for support. So the ecosystem is in place. The stars are well aligned. The building blocks are there. And India's future growth is definitely going to be led by technology, innovation, skills. But that's not all. India is not about its few hundred millionaires, or about its relatively small upper crust. We are a country of 1.3 billion people with tremendous disparity. And while Industrial Revolution 4.0 has the potential to uplift India and the world, it also has the danger of increasing inequity and injustice. So technological innovations also have to address issues of equity and injustice, and emerging technologies have to dovetail into social impact technologies. And if I may quote an example, the new drone policy and the use of drones for mapping of lands, for surveys, for delivery of pesticides, for soil testing, and drones for reaching out healthcare are some examples in this direction. But technology and innovation has ultimately got to reach out to the 1.3 billion Indians to whom we all owe a responsibility. From a 3 trillion economy that we are today, we need to become not a 5 trillion economy, not an 8 trillion economy, but a 10 trillion economy. And why do we need to become a 10 trillion economy? Because we need to generate at least 10 to 12 million jobs every year to accommodate. We also need reskilling. We not just need people to be pulled out from agriculture and into manufacturing and services. We also need people to be pulled out from lower order, repetitive or cognitive jobs, lower cognitive jobs, which are vanishing, to higher order jobs, to new technology jobs, which are emerging. And here, India can lead the world, because the technology of the 21st century is going to shape the future of mankind. And the way the future of mankind is going to be shaped will depend significantly by the way India reacts to all these things. It is for India to use the fourth industrial revolution and the age of technology to build not just a modern India, but a fair, just, inclusive, and sustainable world. Our size, our scale, our intellectual and innovative prowess can help us provide scalable and successful models for the entire developing world. There is a bit of India in the world's future, and believe me, it is a large bit. How will agriculture, how will education now contribute to or work towards shaping this bit? Education, as I have just said, will work towards shaping this, not just through changes in curriculum, not just through changes in how curriculum is delivered from the Industrial Revolution, top-down, pedantic pedagogy, but through a more interactive, learning by doing, dealing with complexity situation, but also by breaking down these artificial iron walls between, as I said earlier, technology and philosophy. So we need in our curricula both the human sciences and both. Last point that I would like to make before I wind up my address. I spoke about the need for a fair, just, sustainable, equitable, peaceful world, a world without walls, a world without hatred, a world without injustice. And I need to remind all of you that 1 millennia, 1,000 years before the Commons era, the CE, which we also call 1,000 years before Christ, And 500 years before the fountainhead of Greek philosophy, which is Aristotle, Socrates, and Plato, commonly called the spa of philosophy, the great Indian philosophical tradition spoke of Vasudev Kutumbakam, the world as a family. The Maha Upanishad speaks of Vasudev Kutumbakam, and India has never looked at an area or a region, both in time and space. Our vision has been cosmic. In space, we have not just looked at the world, we have looked at the cosmos. In time, we have not just looked at time, we have looked at timelessness. We are the philosophical and intellectual heirs to a great tradition. And while the earliest laws were looking at slavery, retribution, an eye for an eye, our forefathers were looking at the metaphysics of human existence. Our 6 schools of ancient Indian thought, Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vedanta, Mimamsa, are masterly expositions of philosophical underpinnings. They are nuanced. They bring forth the tradition of debate, the tradition of discussion, the tradition of learning, knowledge, and free speech. And as heirs to this worthy intellectual tradition, this worthy philosophical tradition, our workplace of tomorrow has not just to be innovative, not just be rewarding, it also has to be driven by these philosophical notions of equity, fairness, justice for all, and our great philosophical tradition of treating the world as one family has to lie at the heart of whatever we do. More than anything else, this is my message to all the young minds who are listening to me. And I'm sure you are all worthy inheritors of a great tradition. I'm delighted to be with all of you today. I thank you for giving this opportunity for me to speak. I thank the organizers of this conference, and I wish this wonderful conference all success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. That was an extremely informative and insightful session, and your words were really powerful, sir. And you raised really pertinent questions, I must add, about what keeps us relevant and how can we use the learnings of today to address the challenges of tomorrow, and what is the role of technology in India's growth and the importance of reskilling. So the stage is now set for a Q&A round, and we would like to request our students, if you have any questions, to kindly raise your hands and ask any query you have from sir about his session. Like sir mentioned, this is the high point of the session to get inputs from the young leaders. So are there any questions? I have two, I guess we can take 2 questions. Yeah, Pranesh, would you like to raise a question?
First of all, thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful session. I believe that all the students are going to learn a lot from today's session. My question is that today many organizations are taking bold steps towards adopting ESG, that is environmental, social, and governance factor in their businesses. And with the fourth evolution, as you mentioned, that technology is booming in the market, and many large organizations have already adopted these technologies to bring efficiencies, reducing flow of channels, and adopting the automation. But with that, the main factor that lags behind is the gig economy, and which is under a threat because of these technological innovations. And so my question is, what initiatives we as a budding entrepreneurs and future leaders should adopt or should take in order to maintain a balance between the same? Thank you.
Sir, do we have you?
Sorry, I think what you were trying to say was I heard a part of what you said. What you said was that organizations are factoring in sustainability in their operations. Is that what you meant?
Yes, sir.
Organizations are factoring in sustainability in their operations. So, what is the question?
Sir, my question is that organizations are adopting ESG, that is the environmental, social, and governance factor in their businesses. So
Right.
one of the social factor that comes under the social factor is that we need to think about our employees. Today, with the adoption of technologies, many of the employees are, like the companies and organizations are laying off their employees because they are either they are not equipped with the relevant technologies or they are not interested in the same. So my question is that how can we like help the gig economy with the adoption of technologies, and how we as a budding entrepreneurs and future leaders should take steps to maintain a balance between the same.
Okay, thank you for your question. You see, I am trained as an engineer first and then as a management graduate. But with my 2 decades in government, I will answer this question from a more equity perspective. Now, I'll first talk. Jack Welch, the famed leader of General Electric, often said that his employees had their back to the customer and their face to the boss. But the Indian company HCL turned this thinking around and said that the employees are the most valuable part of any organization, because if your employees are not happy and your employees are not satisfied, your customer can never be satisfied, because ultimately it is the employees who are your ambassadors of any organization. So what I do want to say that organizations have to be sensitive towards their employees, and it is important for organizations not just to act on principles of profit or principles of ruthless efficiency, but even within organizations, they have to be concerned about issues of equity, issues of balance, issues of welfare of employees, because unless you have a satisfied workforce and unless you have a more equitable distribution of resources, distribution of rewards within the organization, you can neither have a satisfied organization nor can you have a satisfied company.
Thank you, sir, for that
Thank you, sir.
answer. I would now like to request Dr. Mukbil Buran, sir, to express heartfelt gratitude on behalf of IIM Jammu community.
Thank you. Although, sir, what I could see is that there were so many hands being raised, but unfortunately we do not have much time, but we would always love to have you sometime in the campus. We have always been fond of Rohit, sir. He has been a celebrity type of an officer in our JNK, and we are always fond of listening to him. Thank you so much for taking out the time from your busy schedule and accepting our request. We are very thankful to taking out that time for us and speaking such wonderful things to our students. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mukbil, and thank you all of you. I really enjoyed. It's a pity I could not interact more with the students, but I think this is the limitation of the virtual platform.
That's actually true. And then we have a series of speakers. You would be very happy to know that we have 18 speakers for next 2 days who are going to speak to these students. And with this limited time, we actually couldn't give much time, but what we wanted is that everyone at least speaks for a while, and then we can invite all the speakers sometime to the campus, including obviously you, sir, to interact with our students.
Thank you, Dr. Burhan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I hope so you are there with us. Can you hear us? Mr. Anil sir, I hope you are here with us. Can you hear us? I guess there are some technical issues. We'll continue. We'll take a pause for a minute or two and we'll start the session. Good afternoon, sir.
A session filled with
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone.
A session filled with immense value and numerous enriching lessons. We were delighted to have Mr. Rohit Kansal with us. Following up, we have someone who has spent over 2 decades in the financial services sector with extensive experience in the retail lending business. The BFSI sector has undergone a paradigm shift, especially in the last 2 decades. It has evolved a lot in terms of asset quality, technology, and regulations. Our next speaker is a witness to this changing landscape of business in the BFSI sector.
We now welcome amongst ourselves Mr. Anil Kaul, sir, Managing Director at Tata Capital Housing Finance Limited, to the Leadership Summit 3.0. Mr. Anil Kaul, sir, has over 29 years of experience in the banking and financial services industry. Before joining Tata Capital Housing, he has served as a Senior General Manager of ICICI Bank, Joint Managing Director of Capital First Limited, and various others. Over the years, he has been responsible for an extensive range of functions such as institutional banking, sales, credit, collections, and operations. His forte lies in building and scaling up businesses, managing large teams, and overseeing organizational change. We would now like to invite Mr. Anil Kaul, sir, to address us and bestow upon all of us his invaluable learnings.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me first start by congratulating and complimenting IIM Jammu for hosting this Leadership Summit 3.0. It is indeed a privilege for me to join this summit and get an opportunity today to interact with you today. Let me first start by saying, some of the introduction honestly is too far-fetched. I am not sure one truly is worthy and deserving of that. But let me start, coming to the context of this discussion today. There have been many crises which have happened in recent years. Tsunami in 2004, global financial crisis of 2008, the plague scare in Surat in 1994. The severity and the global coverage of economic, social, and psychological consequences of COVID-19, the first pandemic in last 100 years, is catastrophic and global as compared to these crises. While these crises have posed many challenges for the corporation, I will focus on few of them for the purpose of today's discussion. Before I start, let me just let me host my presentation because I thought it will make it easier. Yeah, I should be able to host it. Yes. Is it visible, my presentation?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah, let me just bring it here. So, as I said, this crisis has been unprecedented and corporations have responded to it differently. Let me share some examples of how corporations have responded. All these names on the screen would be, known to most of you, if not all of you. Let me just take quickly some examples. Pfizer, a global MNC, responded to this crisis by creating antiviral therapies to help the infected patients fight the emerging virus and developed new vaccines to fight recurrence of infection. It also joined hands with biotech to improve further the efficacy of its drugs and identify and create newer versions of the medicine. An outcome of this agile and dynamic work by Pfizer is that it, along with companies like Moderna, are supposed to be making about $1,000 a second profit. That's how their decisions have affected them positively. All of us know that the hospitality and the tourism sector is one of the most severely impacted sectors in this crisis. Airbnb was faced with a situation where 70% of its customers were canceling their bookings, and it had a drop of about 50% in its valuation. The company responded to this market change by realizing that its customers were reluctant to do new bookings because of uncertain travel restrictions and the potential pandemic surge. It quickly reassessed its position and tweaked its refund policies by offering 100% refund, last minute cancellation, so on and so forth. A point which I want to leave here with all of you is, while doing this in the early stages, the company did not do it well. It created more anger and confusion in the minds of customer, and it took them some amount of time to read. In March of 20, Swiggy was faced with a situation where customers like you and me were locked up in their houses, and it wanted to double its revenues or increase its revenues. They quickly went back and identified two additional lines of business called Genie and Instamart. Genie was a play on improving on the local courier, which is available in our local markets and cities. And Instamart is a hyper-quick grocery platform. The outcome of this, Swiggy's revenues are 90% of the pre-COVID levels. Grocery revenues are 75% up from March of 21. Companies have responded across the globe in multiple ways to this pandemic. Some have won, some have lost. With this background, the way I see the four core challenges which the pandemic has posed to the corporations are in the areas of evolving customer expectations, increased business risk, cohesive friction, and the challenges on account of remote workplaces. Companies and corporations, both private and governmental, have responded to this disruption by reimagining product and distribution models ab initio, reassessing and reengineering the enterprise risk management systems and architecture. There was an amazing amount of accelerated effort and focus on innovation through digital transformation. And finally, on the human resource challenge, which happened because of remote workplaces, what happened was there was a comprehensive response from organizations, both at leadership level and functional levels, to manage this isolation, which was causing an impact. And I will cover this in subsequent slides. Let me first start with the product and distribution reset. All of us, in this call would agree, and I hope that our own behavior as customer has changed over the last 2 years, and at a speed which was unheard of, say, 5 years back. We now consume products and services which did not exist, or in a manner which is unimaginable to our parents. Now, this disruption caused companies to innovate and create newer models of product and distribution, which in turn led to companies to reinvent and pivot on their business models. Such behaviors by corporations required in the last 2 years that they needed to have or acquire dynamic capabilities in strategic and organizational processes like product development, shortening redevelopment cycles, identifying and partnering with new partners in their ecosystem, and finally making choices which are strategic in nature and that create huge value. And that's what we have seen the winners have done. Some examples of this I wanted to leave with all of you of shift in business models. A very good example is the educational institutions themselves. The way they have adopted the virtual classrooms, the way they have reimagined their content to be deployed both physically as well as virtually by going to online platforms. Platforms like Amazon, Myntra have started offering 2-hour deliveries because that was the customer expectation. No questions asked refund became a norm. Home services offered by companies like Urban Clack, changing models or models based on virtual payments like Google Pay have taken over and have become a part of our daily life. And in financial services, let me take this opportunity to tell you that loans like installation of these changed business models. The next big risk of the challenge which pandemic caused for the corporations was across various types of risk. I'll enumerate some of them. Because we were working at home and our security architectures at our home are not as robust and as strong, we became open to a lot of malware attacks and ransom attacks. Companies' databases and systems became open. So companies had to think about it, how to arrest them, how to protect them. Various agencies and analysts say that about 50% of us have become more amenable to phishing attacks because we work in our home environments. The other risk which came up was the financial risk. And let me spend a minute on this. The financial risks were caused on account of liquidity risks in the market because the markets are volatile. They were caused on account of lenders increasing their rate of interest, both to the corporations like us as well as to consumers. Financial risk increased because of customers delaying or stopping their payments because of breakage in their supply chains and their demand from their customers. All of this caused reassessment, and I'll come to that in a minute. The third risk, which was unheard of before this pandemic, was the medical risk. Every day morning, the HR managers and the functional heads would sit up and figure out in which state, because of what guideline, how many hours could you open the office. So you needed to work out what are the timelines, which office can be opened, what is the change to be done, and it would be done in real time. Also, you had consequence as a result of medical infection, offices getting closed. So one corporation had to manage that risk. And finally, I will take a minute to talk about operational risk. The operational risk propensity increased because the supervision was distributed. It was not under one roof. So organizations reacted to this by looking and reassessing their enterprise risk management architecture across all dimensions. People started spending more money on data security. People started, organizations including ours, reassess. Regulators started looking at what-if scenarios and started asking organizations to create buffers for various events so that they were ready to face the market challenge. Similar challenges were there on the people side, and it will be suffice to say organizations and the ERM became a board level focus, and a lot of money and time of senior management is being set up to invest in ERM and understand how to manage it, navigate it better. The third risk was what I call cohesive friction. Every day you walk across, have a cup of coffee, sit in a meeting and do a face-to-face engagement and settle this out. In remote working environment, you had silos becoming more and more. It was not that the work was not happening. The rate at which it was happening slowed down. The organizations resolved and did the great reset on this by taking some of the steps. And some of these steps were inordinately high level of focus on transforming digitally, both internally and externally. It helped the customer adoption on digital products also increased. On average, the digitization within the organizations has increased by about 40% in the last 2 years. A lot of things which were on paper moved to digital platforms. What digital platforms did was it transferred data and decisions seamlessly across silos. Silos started narrowing down, becoming things. I'm not saying they disappeared, but they became, started becoming weaker, and transformation ensured that your work and speed at which you worked was faster. In terms of the last risk, which I want to talk about, is the human resource risk. All of us worked remote workplaces. It caused two things. One of them is we had to juggle our family and our professional responsibilities. And in context, I'm sure all of you will appreciate the family is there. It is an embedded part of culture, and rightfully so. In terms of other issues, because of loneliness, there were indeed mental health issues which came up and needed to be addressed. So the organizations responded to this in a very comprehensive fashion. First and foremost, leaders in organizations responded to this by setting up virtual times beyond which you could not call upon the employee to spend more time on company affairs. This was important because there was no physical time, so one had to put, and leaders had to take on the stance of setting those boundary conditions. It also ensured that employees got time for their families in these crisis times. Companies also became more amenable and more acceptable to the concept of flexi hours. Employees could juggle, manage their work-life balance better. The second intervention which happened from the HR side was to focus on the well-being of customers. Virtually all organizations I know of invested in creating platforms which focused on well-being by offering teleconsultation, medical platforms, doctor access, hospital access in terms of crisis and otherwise. Right. Specialized lines were offered for people to discuss their mental health issues and other associated issues. So it was a very, very affirmative, proactive steps being taken by the HR teams and organizations to invest in the well-being. Yeah, on the other side, there were also investments made in providing platforms like yoga and Zumba platforms to generally keep up the morale of the organization. It also was very interesting to see how employees responded to this pandemic in terms of organizing themselves as working teams and individuals. Since you could not do ad hoc conversations that I could walk into your room and do a conversation at any point of time, people started organizing their day better. We became more efficient, and efficiency showed up in various results over last 2 years. Times, schedules became more efficient. Yes, did we have more meetings? The answer is yes. Were they well organized? Were they sharp? Answer is yes. So by nature, organizations became more efficient in delivery of their work, both internal and external. And finally, to end this discussion on this page is on the comp and bend side. What happened was, I think all good organizations, great organizations, the leadership took the onus of taking pay cuts versus making layoffs in the employees. Leadership also ensured that the HR teams are empowered to make process deviations and spend money on medical expenses as and when, if unfortunately required. So if you ask me, across the 4 risks, what happened is organizations responded very, very decisively across evolving customer expectations by changing business models, by increased business risk, by innovating and focusing more and more at digital transformation. And finally, the challenges accruing out of remote workplace were managed by very, very positive affirmations, including communications by leadership, doing regular outreach, spending more time and times, which ensured that the contact beyond office work was done so as that people did not feel lonely and disaggregated, and hence addressed what started showing up in some cases was the anxiety levels because of loneliness, right? The worry of job loss. So if you ask me, this is how the organizations responded to this pandemic, and the Great Reset this is how, if you ask me, the great organization, the good organizations responded depending on what their capabilities were managing this risk. I thought I will just take a minute and share with you what we at Tata's did in this period. This is a quick, small summary of what we did on various platforms. right? Medical camps, part of Vande Bharat mission, some of our hotels offered became centers for patients to be kept across the group, across the country. Tatas knew that it was a time for us to contribute, and profit cannot be the only determinant of a commercial enterprise, and that's what our founding values are. And I thought I'll for this gathering of young minds, I wanted to keep, and Mr. Kansal made a very interesting point about profit cannot be the only part. With this, as is said by a wise man,